meditative posture, however you're comfortable doing it. It's perfectly fine to sit in a chair. Just make sure your feet are grounded. If you're sitting on the ground, feel like your sits bones are just sinking right into the mat, into the bolster. Really feel the energy going downwards, down to the center of the core of the earth. And then feel a simultaneous uplifting of your crown, just your crown, so your shoulders fall away from your ears. Feel that upward moving energy reach all the way up to the North Star, and then feel yourself absolutely supported by both the downward and the upward moving energies. Feel them connect to the core and to the North Star and cycle back, kind of in a feedback loop. Focus your awareness at the tips of your nostrils and just let any tension, any holding, let it go. See if you can imagine yourself as completely hollow, filled with the color of sky blue light. And then in the air in front of you, see Lord Buddha, however that looks for you. But don't make it a statue, make it a living entity. If you have a personal teacher in this life, see that being morph into your teacher. If you don't, just really flesh out your image of your Buddha. Most importantly, look at their eyes. See the love that they have lighting them up from the inside and shining back at you through their eyes. They have so much love for you. They see the perfection that you already are. Beg them to take you all the way. And see them dissolve into golden light and just melt right into your heart. Try to keep that feeling of expansiveness and openness. As we start class tonight. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. So, ACI 9, class 9. We're almost done. This course. It's never ending. And last week we talked about how actually as you get a few of these Asian Classic Institute classes under your belt, you start to begin to see how they all just perfectly mesh together. very much like the studies in a traditional monastery, where initially you learn almost by rote. You learn the scriptures, you learn the subject matter, and each subject seems to be independent of the other. They seem to be quite freestanding. But at a certain point, you get this realization that they're all talking about the same thing, actually. They're just talking about it in different ways. And that all of it is necessary for a solid foundation, so that you can ignite your own wisdom and compassion. And you need both. You need that unstoppable combination of your greatest truth and your highest love. And it's that union which is the true yoga, actually. So the first 7 classes of this course, which is called, what is this course actually called? In how did we advertise this course? Was it the Vinaya, or was it Ethical Life? And Geshe-la likes to say how to live a good life, because it is about ethics. We talked about monastic vows. We talked about layperson's vows, because when you're talking about an ethical life, it's important to understand what some of the things that you can do to make sure that you're living it, right? So we spent 7 classes going through all of the different types of vowed morality. And more important than that, we actually talked about why. Like, why are we even doing any of this? Why be an ethical person? And, the logical answer is so that you will be a nice person. People will like you. Those are just byproducts, okay? The reason you want to be an ethical person is that it is your secret to happiness. It is the only way to reach your happiness. So knowing that it's the cause for your ultimate happiness, then we want to get really clear on how it is that we can achieve it quickly. So that's what the first 7 classes were about. The last 3, last week's class, this week, and next week. And if you missed any of them, we have Ustream recordings of these classes. And also, I highly recommend that you go after class, not before you come to class, but after class, go on to the acidharma.org website, Formal Studies ACI Course 9, and you can download for free all of Geshe Michael's original teachings, which he did back in the mid-90s. So, and I apologize in advance to anyone who hasn't heard this before, and everyone who has, that my Tibetan sucks. So when we get to the actual, there's a lot of Tibetan in tonight's class, I apologize in advance for my pronunciation. It's really just how I see the letters. So I'm doing it phonetically as I see them. I really encourage you to listen to the audio to hear Geshe-la's beautiful speaking of the holy words, okay? So this class, next week's class, and the class after are Jetsun Kappa's. Jetsun Kappa, by the way, is the head of the lineage of the Dalai Lama, the head of the Gelugpa lineage that our school happens to be in. And he's one of the key scholars that we've been studying in terms of the Vinaya teachings, in terms of the vowed morality teachings. And these last 3 classes are his Lam Rim. Who can tell me what a Lam Rim is?
The path. Steps to the path of enlightenment.
That's one way to say it. Do you also remember what else a Lam Rim is? Steps to the path to enlightenment is the
foundation.
But specifically Lam Rim. Remember, it can be the entire steps, or it can be a single step. It can be a part of, right?
Yes.
So the Lam Rim can be the whole text, or it can be each chapter of the text, or it can even be each step within the step that we're in, if that makes any sense. So, for example, the first step, actually it's the pre-step is what we're going to talk about today, is going to have many, many components. So we're on the Lam Rim Dudun, which is Jetsun Kappa's shortest Lam Rim, and it's based on his own spiritual realizations. But we're also going to talk about the Lam Rim, the step that you need to take at the very beginning. Okay? Confused yet? So basically the Lam Rim, steps to the path of enlightenment, can be cut in half. Finding your Lama and everything else. It's one way to slice and dice it. Okay? And so this is the pre-step. This is the step of actually finding your Lama is one of the crucial points. Without that, you will only be able to go so far. So say Shenyan Tenzu. Shenyan means friend in the sense of, in Sanskrit the word would be Kalyan Mitra, for those of you who know Sanskrit. It's a really unusual word that means the type of friend who is like a blood brother, like who is so close to you that they are family. And it really is a word used in reference to your teacher. Sometimes they say spiritual friend, right? The ten in Tenzu means, I've written rely, and to rely on is an easy or a common, just a useful translation. But it's the type of rely that you do when you rely on medicine to work, or you rely on a doctor to help you. It's that type of reliance that we're talking about. And feel free to sit in a chair too if it becomes more comfortable, okay? And the tenzu is how to. So this is in the opening. So last week we talked about the very first lines of Jetsun Kappa's Lam Rim, and it was basically his obeisance, right? He was bowing down to the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. And we were understanding that in that he sets out basically the entire goal, right? He sets out basically that what we're aiming for in all of this is to reach total enlightenment. And we dissected what each of those refuges meant. So this is then the next phrase that comes in, and in the stanza he's telling us that the very, very crucial thing is to learn this thing, to rely on your spiritual friend. So you can't rely on a spiritual friend if you don't have one, right? So that's why the preliminary step is to find a teacher. And Geshe-la tells an interesting story here, and when you listen to the audio, you can comment on it for me afterwards. But he tells a story, and he was actually unclear whether the story had to do with Marpa to his teacher or Milarepa to Marpa. So many of you have heard of Milarepa if you've studied any Tibetan Buddhism at all, because he's very, very famous. He was actually he committed atrocious crimes for the sake of his mother, but he killed almost his entire village. And then later he atones for it and really seriously travels the whole Lam Rim and reaches enlightenment in his very life. But so I'm not sure if it's Milarepa to Marpa or Marpa to Tilopa. Tilopa was Marpa's teacher. But anyways, the story goes that the student went to the teacher and presented an offering of an empty pot. In Asia, it's apparently very, very rude to offer a pot empty. You need to have something in it. And so then the pot was returned to him full of beer, and he was instructed to drink it. Now, in this particular practice, not the practice, but in this particular level of teaching, alcohol would be one of the 5 non-virtues, right? It would be one thing that you would be breaking a vow to partake of alcohol, but in realization of the importance of this teacher and understanding that this was a teaching, he drank. And they say that in that act, he made the highest offering. And it was all very auspicious. So that's a story that's told in Buddhism about those great sages. And but it's that type of, it's not that you do just what your teacher tells you to just because they tell you, but it really has more to do with the faith with which the student had their trust and belief in their teacher. And if you've been in these classes for any time at all, you have to remember your emptiness, right? That wasn't a pot of beer from its own side. Could have been if the student looking at it was treating it self-existently. But understanding truly not only where the beer came from, but where his teacher came from, was where the whole magic happened. That's actually the whole class. We could go home now.
Yeah.
Do you want me to unpack it for you a little bit more? Okay. So that actually is the whole class, but not the whole transmission. No, I will not be giving you a glass of beer, Okan.
Yeah.
Okay. This is really, really crucial. This relationship with your Lama, with your teacher, is so precious. It's given. It's the first step of many, 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 many steps to get to enlightenment, but it's given the weight. It's half in terms of weight, not in terms of steps, but it's basically the whole Lamrim goes finding and then serving your Lama, right? And everything else is in the nexus of serving your Lama. So it's heavy and weighty. And if you guys remember from your karma class too, your Lama is one of your most heavy karmic objects, right? So there is this literalness to bless you, to that role also. If you can capture this energy that does exist, that can exist between student and teacher, and really perfect it, it becomes a limitless source of power. They do say once you have a teacher that if you misbehave, then those actions are also equally powerful, right? So,
No, because then that's considered you have a doubt if you misbehave, right?
doubt could be one of the causes of misbehaving, certainly, but when I say misbehave, I mean like like doing one of the 10 non-virtues, or breaking your vows, or planting bad karma, right? Which is what we've been talking about also, trying to collect the amount of virtue you need to move along the paths with relative ease versus constantly finding obstacles, constantly finding blocks. By the way, one of the biggest, I find if you're in this room, you have incredible karma. I think some of you have heard me say that before. If you don't know what your past life was like, I can guarantee you were phenomenal in that. Otherwise, you would not be sitting here right now. It takes incredible karma to be hearing even a sentence of what I've told you, to be able to, you live in a country, in a part of the world at a time when you have all of the rights of democracy and freedom of speech and all of that. Not everybody does in this very day and age, right? You have what's called the correct leisure and fortune to really get the job done. They also say that all of us are amnesiac yogis. We actually didn't finish the job in the last lifetime, which is why we're here. So, but you're so close, right? Yeah, I can tell. Very close. And that's what they say, that we've been at it since beginningless time. I remember when I first heard beginningless time, my mind wanted a beginning. There has to be a beginning. Beginningless time. But since beginningless time, whichever way you look at it, is a long time, right? They say that, if this is the goal that we're trying to get to, we're right here. We're just not there yet, but we're right here. So we don't know how long we've been at it, and we actually don't know how long we have, but we know we're close. Like, this is a lot closer than all of this, right? So this is why it's so amazing that we have these precious teachings and these types of resources available to us, translated into our own language, and from the original authoritative sources to refer to rely on. So the finding a teacher and understanding that relationship is crucial. So, you really need to understand what to look for. And some of you have gone through this before, so don't go on screensaver, okay? Because these are actually really important to understand. It's also important to understand because this is also a teacher training program. Everything we do here is intended so that you can one day share it and help somebody else. That's the whole intent of the ACI curriculum. So, and they also say we need to hear something 7,000 times. Right, Okan?
It's just about to remember.
Oh, yeah. 7,000 times. Before we actually, don't have to go, oh, yeah, I need to remember that. So, for some of you, this may be, you might have 6,973 more to go, but so just to mix it up a little bit, I'm going to give you the 10 qualities of a Lama in Tibetan. But the important thing to understand is that you have to remember, even in the knowing that you need a teacher, even in knowing what to look for in a teacher, you have to understand these concepts of karma and emptiness. If you don't have the right causes in place, no matter how intellectually you know what to look for, and no matter how hard you look, it's not going to happen. And if you think that the Lama, the teacher, is out there waiting to shine their Lamaness on you, that's not going to happen either. The tricky thing, though, is when you first meet your Lama, it may feel like that. It may definitely feel that they're out there shining all of their splendidness at you, just for you. It will feel like that. It's pretty amazing. Everyone I know who has met their teacher has had a very similar, I know it's different from everyone, but they've had a very similar experience where it's like falling in love. You just know, and you can't explain it. And people have varying degrees of that. Some people burst into tears, some people have their butterflies, there's all sorts of things that some people pass out. There's all different ways that it can happen. For others, it's more subtle. It might not be this song and dance. It might be just this, you just feel so much better when you're around them, or or dramatically worse that could happen too. They can like ripen stuff for you, you know, but normally the feeling is one of ecstatic attraction and love. Like that's generally the common denominator. And so when that happens, it feels like it's coming from them. It really does. So you have to understand that nothing comes from themselves. Like everything in your world comes from you. Like right now, there isn't just one of me sitting up here. There is as many of me as there are you. And you're all experiencing me differently. I can guarantee that. You guys should go exchange notes after, and I will guarantee you're seeing a different person, each of you. Does that mean that I'm not here at all? No, of course I'm here. I mean, I'm sitting here, drinking my tea, right? It's not pouring out of me because I don't exist. And you're hearing some decibels and syllables and sounds and stuff. Of course I'm here. But I'm not here in a fixed, self-existent way. Because if I were, I couldn't teach you. The very definition of fixed is immobile, unmoving, unchanging. And that's just crazy, right? If I was fixed and unmoving, I couldn't actually tell you anything. So you have to remember where things come from. You have to remember this beautiful concept of emptiness. And this is not part of the oral transmission for this course, but I'm going to give you extra credit homework. Please look up the Magic of Empty teachings on the acidharma.org website. It's in the Silent Retreat teachings. It may just be the transcript. I don't know if the audio is still available, but maybe Joyce, if you can check and let me know if the audio still works, and if not, I think I've got a file on it.
Teacher?
It's the Magic of Empty Teachers, and it was a silent retreat teaching that Geshe Michael gave when he was in his his 3-year retreat back in 2000.
I think I can sound it out.
Do you have the audio? Okay.
I think so.
So maybe Joyce, if you can check online if it's accessible on ACI Dharma, and if it's not, we'll get Yulia to send out the file.
We needed to do it for the
YSI? Okay. It's an exquisite teaching, and there's actually a whole course on it that Lama Marut designed that I've taught a couple times here. But that original audio from Geshe Michael talking about the magic of empty teachers and really explaining the emptiness of the Lama and the need that we have to really, really understand that. If you've been coming to these classes for a while, intellectually we're all going, yeah, I get it, I got it, yeah, of course you're empty. But, you know, if you're ever conflicted in the presence of your Lama, or if you're ever feeling mood swings or anything but a very, very beautiful, blissful level of contentment that you just want to share with everyone and can, then you're not seeing them as empty, actually. Any sort of klesha that comes up is where we're still holding on to something that's fixed or wanting it to be fixed. So that audio is gorgeous, and I really, really recommend it. And I've listened to it many times. It's one of those things you can just keep listening to over and over. It's so exquisite. But I really, really highly encourage everybody to listen to that. So it's the Magic of Empty Teachers. It's in the Silent Retreat teachings, which is not in the formal studies or the daily practice. I think it's in the other stuff that's on the acidharma.org website. It's exquisite. Okay, so understanding the causes and conditions and the emptiness of the teacher, that whatever this magic is that I'm talking about isn't coming from them. That it can only come from you being able to give them the power to teach you. And that doesn't mean you give up your independence or you give up your discernment. It's not at all. Like in Buddhism, they always say, you know, don't take anything I'm saying just because I'm saying it. Test it for yourself. The Lord Buddha said that. You have to test it as if you were going to test gold. You have to burn it, scratch it, file it, use a touchstone. So you need to use your own logic. You need to use your own observation. You need to go to authoritative sources. And it needs to ring true for you. If it doesn't and you haven't done all those tests, don't diss it either. Just put it on the shelf. All it means is that you don't have all the data yet. You don't have all the experience yet. You don't have all of the information yet for yourself, if it's not making sense. And it's not, but it doesn't mean you need to believe something just because you hear it. It just means put it on the shelf, come back to it later. And those very things will save you a lot of grief. Because we get in our own way when we unequivocally decide that something is wrong or bad, or we make these blanket decisions. I like this, I don't like that. And anything like that is limiting. Really, really limiting. Again, I'm not saying accept things unequivocally. I'm not saying that either. But if something is sounding unclear, just wait until you have more clarity. Okay? So the 10 qualities that you should look for in a lama, in your teaching, in your teacher, say dulwa. Dulwa means discipline, and dulwa is also another word for Vinaya, for this whole body of teachings that we've been studying. And in Tibetan, it's a particular word that means to train a horse, like to train a wild horse. So what you're doing is you're taming and restraining your mind. But in the sense of a quality of a teacher, it means that they're someone who's keeping their 3 levels of vows. And the 3 levels of vows are the pratimoksha, or the basic freedom vows, like the individual freedom vows. They're keeping their bodhisattva vows, and they're keeping their tantric vows. And how do you know, right? Like, they're not advertising that they're carrying all of these vows, but you know by observation. You know by first of all, you need to know you can know ahead of time what those first 2 sets of vows are. You can't know what the secret vows are until you get initiated. However, understand that to have secret vows, you have to have the other 2, and you have to be holding them very well. So you can, by observation, know if they seem to be someone who's walking the walk, it's not do as I say, they're leading by example, right? So they do say that you can almost smell it on them. There's an essence of morality. There's a perfume of morality that happens. You know how they say enlightened beings speak Sanskrit? I've also heard that they smell like sandalwood. But that's just, I can't remember where I heard that, but I did hear that somewhere. And really, the only way you can tell is your own observation. So again, if a teacher appears to be behaving oddly, don't judge it, put it on the shelf, but if it goes against your own best judgment, your own what you feel you need for yourself at that level, then keep looking, But a case in point, do you guys know who Chogyam Trungpa is? Very, very famous wild yogi teacher who apparently showed up for teachings appearing to be very inebriated. Drunk.
Oh.
One of the most phenomenal teachers in modern Tibetan Buddhism. So was he? Well, yeah, exactly. Was he? Or was that the teaching? There's a very famous story. I mean, this was in the 70s. There's a very famous story of him inviting all of his students to come to a party, and they were all to bring whatever herbal substance was their thing. And they all brought bags of it, right? And he had them throw it all into the fire. It was a big puja. It was a major offering. I mean, how brilliant is that? In ancient India, a puja was all the precious grains and food, right? Because that was the money, that was the currency of the day. The thing that was most precious to you is what you offered up. And so for this teacher to like burn your weed, right? It was the most precious thing to them. And how perfect is that? He was giving like such an amazing teaching. So best if you can see, to your comfort zone that they are keeping their discipline and all of that. But again, don't be so quick to judge if the teacher you're drawn to, because again, there does have to be that attraction. There has to be that magnetism. But if the teacher you're drawn to doesn't necessarily fall into what you think they're supposed to look like or supposed to behave like, check if they've got these other qualities too, okay? Because Trungpa definitely had them. So the second one, say Shiva. Shiva is a beautiful word that means peace, and it's also a synonym for nirvana. So this is the quality of being able to concentrate deeply. And again, you can kind of tell by their demeanor. You can tell by their, are they easily, what's the word, discombobulated, right? Are they erratic? Are they relatively even keel? And not to say that a good lama won't actually pull the rug out from under you every once in a while, but generally speaking, do they seem very introspective and balanced? It's a quality to look out for. Say near Shiva. So it's got that same Shiva in there, right? This refers to having a really, really deep intellectual understanding of emptiness. And for those of you who have been taking ACI for a while, do you recognize Dulva Shiva, Nir Shiva are also the 3 extraordinary trainings. Okay. The fourth one, say Yunten Hlakpa. This means that your lama should have a few more qualities that you aspire to than you have. They say if you want to learn anything, go to someone who's better than you at it, right? Don't go to someone who can't do it at all or who's worse, because what are they going to teach you, right? So you want to go to someone whose spiritual qualities you emulate, who you would like to be like. Okay? The fifth one, say Tsunche. So, Tsunche is that they should possess effort. They should possess effort in 2 ways. They should be of ultimate benefit to themselves and ultimate benefit to others. And basically, it's they constantly make effort to teach you. The Sanskrit word that I like for this is virya. It just really means this joyous effort. Okay? And then the 6th one, say Lungichuk. Lungichuk is that they are wealthy in scriptural knowledge. They can tell you some really good stories about Buddhism. Not that they make up, that they get from authoritative sources. Okay? They should have a broad knowledge of the Buddhist literature, of the Buddhist canon, of all the various topics within it. This is the most beautiful thing about the ACI curriculum. If you finish all 18 courses, you have such a depth in all of the what they call the 3 baskets of Buddhism. All of the major topics, all the major subject matter is covered in a very thorough way. We don't memorize the scriptures here the way you would as a baby monk in a monastery, but we are taught the essence, the real crucial points of all of them. So definitely, if any of this speaks to you, I highly recommend that you take a look through the ACI website, and we're going to be continuing to offer the classes here on a regular basis. They say wherever possible, get it live, but if that's not possible, then Geshe-la has this exquisite treasure trove of the teachings on that asadharma.org site. Where was I? 7?
Mm-hmm.
Say Denyi Rabtok. Denyi Rabtok is that they must have a great realization of emptiness. Ultimately, it would be best if they've had their direct perception of emptiness. But I gotta tell you, if they have, they probably won't tell you that they have. So again, you just kind of have to get a sense of it. But seriously, a teacher who has had deep, deep realizations of emptiness is going to be much better able to teach you how to do it, right? Because they've done it. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, seeing emptiness directly? Are you from? Okay. So the next one, say Makeden. Makeden is someone who is a master teacher. And what that means, to be a master teacher, is to be able to gauge the capacity of the student, to know when to push them, and to know when to teach to their, so to not teach too high and not teach too low, like to know just what each student needs. That in itself is an art, actually, and I've seen my teachers do it so beautifully. But here's the thing, it can be the exact same teaching. It can be the exact same words. And if you, see, it's not coming from the teacher, okay? If you have the seeds to hear it, you will hear it at the level that you are needing to hear it. Geshe Michael talks about, the 17th century Flemish painters who used to use many, many coats of varnish, like Van Eyck and Vermeer. They never... Art historians cannot actually figure out what those were like secret recipes that died with the artists, right? They didn't actually write them down or pass them on, but the layers and layers and layers of paint that are on those exquisite paintings to this day have maintained their clarity. And Geshe-la says that a lama is like that. There's many, 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 many layers. On one layer, they may appear quite schmucky to you, or they may be a half schmuck or a quarter schmuck, or they may be quite lovely, or they might be really incredibly amazing, or they might be a holy divine angel. No contradiction anywhere along. It just depends what your capacity, what level of capacity you're at to see. So it's not coming from them. It's actually also documented that Lord Buddha gave one teaching, and some people heard it as a morality teaching on how to, don't drink, don't, all this stuff. At another level, it was full-on tantric. And he was blue, by the way, to those people. So, it's, again, but did he change, or was he like doing this quick costume change in the background? No, it's just what, and this is what at the beginning of class I said, we have to understand karma and emptiness. We have to understand that everything has a cause, and that the effect is possible because of this thing we call emptiness, bless you. So, the master teacher, just knowing. The other way that your Lama manifests, I love this when this happens. When I have a question or a dilemma, I don't even have to be with my teachers. Although it's often, I mean, I prefer it when I am, but even if I'm not, I will get the answer. The answer will come, and it will be as clear as day that that is the lesson and the teaching, and I know it's from my lamas. You know, just what you need will come at the time that you need it. And when that type of synchronicity starts to happen, it means that your connection with your lama is working. Those are always really lovely roadblocks, signposts that you're doing something. But I will warn you, what you need and what you want are rarely in sync, especially at the beginning. Okay, what we think we need and what we want, we think it's the same thing, but really what we really need and what we think we want are usually very far apart. So it's coming to a surrender to the potential of all of that we need to cultivate. Okay, the next one is Tsewe Dakni. Tsewe, this is all about love. This is actually the true motivation of a teacher. They teach because they love to teach. They teach because they love you. It's really the only motivation. They know the perfection that is you. They know that you might not quite see it yet. And they love you enough to keep teaching you until you see it for yourself.
Isn't the Maitreya was teaching about love?
Yeah. And if any of you have done the Jetsun Kappa practice, the Ganden Lagama, Mikne Tsewe, that's the same Tsewe. Or if you've come to Kirtan and if you've sung that Jetsun Kappa chant, it's in that. It's loving eyes. Yeah, seeing with the eyes of love. And then the last one, say Kyowa Pang. Kyowa Pang means that, well, it literally translates to give up distaste, give up all distaste. But what it means is that a teacher never tires of teaching, never tires of repeating the same thing 7,000 times if need be, never tires of giving you the gift of wisdom and love that you need. So, and the other side of that, they not only never tire, they never give up on you. Even if as a student you need to take a break, they never give up on you, ever. Or even if they send you away for whatever reason, they never give up on you. Okay? So those are the 10 qualities to look for in a lama. But here's the thing. You also need to, now we're not going to go over the 10 qualities of a student, which is covered in another ACI course, but remember that emptiness of the lama, the magic of empty teachers? You really, really, really need to understand that who you see, what you see, how they are for you is coming from you. And so until you have the goodness to have the perfect teacher in your life, they will always seem imperfect. Or they may be glowingly perfect in one moment, and then, oh my God, what was I thinking in the next, you know? And it may flip-flop like that. Yeah. You know, Lama Marut tells a beautiful story of his relationship to Geshe Michael, who is his Lama. And initially, you know, going through this whole struggle of who's my Lama, how do I know, and then finally deciding, no, you're it, this is it, and then asking him formally to be his Lama, and Geshe Michael agreed, and then immediately disappeared into 3-year retreat. But what Lama Marut did, and here's the thing, to create the causes for a teacher in your life, to create the causes for your Lama to be in your life and to stay, one of the main causes is to learn how to serve, and to serve really, really well. Ideally serve your Lama, but serve your Lama's activities, serve, you know, whatever goals they're expressing in the world. And so for Geshe Michael, Lama Marut decided to actively take on the responsibility for perpetuating the ACI curriculum across North America and into actually across the globe, because he taught in Australia and Singapore and all of that. And we have the benefit, he came up here a lot before he himself went into semi-retreat lifestyle last year, right? Or 2 years ago, of this promise. And he taught insanely across the world. His schedule, oh my God. Now that I teach, I realize how much energy it takes to teach a class. He would come and teach an ACI course in 5 days here. So we would have back-to-back courses. Sometimes he would teach 3 classes in 1 day. It's insane, but he was unstoppable. So anyways, Geshe Michael comes out of retreat. Oh, and prior to that, he said, he had picked his Lama, he had decided, and he kind of figured he would be able to just pick up the phone and call him anytime and just have a chat or a visit. Couldn't get near the guy. Couldn't get near him. I don't know if any of you have been around Geshe Michael, but he has a bit of an entourage, and it can be a little bit intimidating if you are unfamiliar. And Lama Maru was like, way in the back, kind of waving. But he served like a fiend for 3 years. And Geshe Michael comes out, and the next thing he knows, Lama Root finds him in his bathroom. He's staying with him in his apartment in California, and he's coming out of the bathroom with his toothbrush, like the toothpaste coming out of his mouth, and it's sort of like, he didn't want to see that part of his Lama, right? But so again, whether they are, appearing to be normal, or whether they're appearing to be divine, or whether they are distant or close, or, coming to you in every dream, or can't even get them on email, none of that is coming from them. None of it. But they are an incredible delivery system. Remember last week we talked about how an aspirin cannot be the cause for curing a headache, because if it were, it would work equally well for every single person who took it. But then I also said, which wasn't in the original lung, but I also said that an aspirin is a really good delivery system. Better than swallowing a button, right? Although, if you had the karma, the button would work too. But generally speaking, it's a powerful delivery system if you have the cause and effect for that to work for you, right? Well, a Lama is a very, very powerful delivery system. But that's all they are. They are a delivery system for your karma to come back to you. So they will help you ripen the most powerful, good, bad, or otherwise, that needs to ripen. And it's our task as students to, once we've committed and once we've decided, to stay open and to stay through the trials. And if you're worried about trials and tribulations, read about Milarepa, read about Talopa, and we got it easy, man, compared to these people who actually lived and walked this planet and met their teachers and got to enlightenment in one lifetime. So, it's pretty spectacular. Sorry?
There was a movie.
There was, but it was only part 1, and I keep waiting for part 2 to come out. Part 2? Part 2, all the way.
He destroyed the whole town.
No, that's all part 1. That movie ends with him going to find his Buddhist Lama. He does actually make it. He gets his realizations. They do that beautifully. Yeah. It's a gorgeous movie, but that was only.
Comes out of their
yeah, but that was only part 1.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so the thing about the Lama, whether they're a normal being or whether they're this divine being, because, by the way, it's not just your Lama who's empty. Everybody's empty. But your Lama is the best delivery system for you. If we had the right karma in place, this could be your Lama. It could be. Like, there's no contradiction. But it just so happens that if you can find a being who has this, or at least they say 5 of them, or at the very least 3 of the qualities, you're doing way better than most people who don't even know about them, okay? The thing about Lamas, okay? At the very, very core, there's a part of you that needs to start believing that they are an emanation of an enlightened being for you. So then you have to remember what you know about enlightened beings, okay? They can appear in any shape or form, at any time. They are not hindered by time and space, past, present, and future. They can appear in more than one emanation at the same time, right? So it's no contradiction that your Lama might appear to you as a middle-aged monk in one part of the country and a young woman in another part of the country and a child somewhere else. Like, there's no contradiction. There's also no contradiction that your Lama might be in your life in one form, appear to pass on, because you don't have the karma yet to see them not pass on, and emanate to you in a new form. No contradiction.
Because the mind is too close.
Because the Lama can, because the holy being, see, I'm saying at the core, you have to start believing they are the enlightened, because the quality of an enlightened being is that they can appear in any shape or form. It's our karma that sees somebody aging and dying. It's our karma that sees this form or that form, right?
Yeah, just like is that applies in Dalai Lamas? Like, like Dalai Lama 14, he's physically looking that way. If you're looking at Dalai Lama 13, physically looks differently.
Well, even the
Like
Dalai Lama
Lamas.
today, who's what, in his 60s? Is that
70,
chronologic?
I think,
70s? We see a 70-year-old being who looks incredible, by the way, and is glowing, but still we don't see a 16-year-old, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what he sees from his side. We don't. And we don't know that from his side, he hasn't been with us all the time. We've had the karma to experience 14 Dalai Lamas, right? But it's no contradiction. A really good example of that was when Geshe Michael gave the initial student body of Diamond Mountain their tantric initiations. Many of the students thought that Geshe Michael was their Lama, and he is. And then really, at the time of initiation, he said, oh, and by the way, these are your tantric lamas too. So there were 5 of them. And not everyone had the capacity or the causes in place to be able to accept that in that moment, and fair enough, if they didn't have that view yet, they shouldn't have taken initiation and were invited not to. And I do know that one person left for the right reasons, but for my teachers who stayed, they said that it was the most incredible gift Geshe Michael gave to them, because one Lama is powerful, multiply that by 5, right? But it's a test of your own ability to understand the emptiness and karma of all of that. And in our direct lineage, we've had the experience of 2 of our very powerful Lamas appearing to split, appearing to be very apart and very conflicting somehow. That's coming from us if we experience it in that way. And sometimes Lamas will do crazy things like Chogyam Trungpa, right? For you, to teach you a lesson that you need to learn. So this is the hardest part about understanding the value, or not the value, understanding who your teacher is. Because, like I say, when you get those earth-shaking moments, it really feels like it's coming from them. It really does. It feels like they're making you happy. It's not within their power to do that. It's not. And if you keep believing that, they will, also make you unhappy. And it's not in their power to do that either.
It must be so hard to grasp.
It's hard. It's really hard. But the teacher-student relationship is, bar none, the most precious. It's more precious than your spouse. It's more precious than even your parent or child, although those relationships are vital and important. And you can use them in a very similar way as your Lama. But again, it's no contradiction that your Lama might choose to emanate through one of those examples I just gave you also. But the relationship is different. And if you're ever wondering, is this or is this not, look at what it is they're teaching you. And it might not be this ye old sitting up here teaching you, but if by their actions or what they're forcing you to think, say, or do, they are pushing you towards higher realizations, then you gotta wonder. You really gotta start to wonder who they are, right? Yeah. The thing is, remember I said before, they're not going to be perfect until you are, and until then, they're going to waffle. So we're going to have ups and downs in this practice. But at a certain point, if you have the sincere motivation of knowing you need a teacher and having the courage to ask someone to do that for you and they agree, don't be surprised if they then pull a Geshe Michael on you. Or don't be surprised if they disappear for 3 years, or, all of that is in the nexus of what you need, maybe not what you want. Okay? But never, ever, ever forget the fact that they are empty, the fact that everyone is empty, but they're the one that you can practice on. And they say, the Lama is there. Use them to really push your understanding of karma and emptiness. And remember, above anything, even in your worst moments, they love you intensely. And it's not the same as the type of love we expect for attention or to make us feel better or to make us not lonely, or it's none of that. And as we get closer and closer to seeing who they truly are, you're going to understand that you're becoming them also. This is the other magic of. So that's why pick your teachers wisely, because not only will you learn from them, you'll become them. So, yeah. I mean, if you do it right. So there is no contradiction. They can appear in many forms, in many ways, and the thing is, when you find your Shenyan, you've got to make the leap. And the doubt that you were talking about, Sevi, is actually the obstacle that really derails us. Now, in all fairness, doubt will be the last to go. But the degree of doubt, the crazy makingness of doubt will start to temper as you practice, as you serve, as you do your ACI studies, as you try and explain it to somebody else, all of it. So if you don't have a teacher or you're unsure, do whatever you can to help others, and do it with the intention that I'm doing this so that I can get clear, that I can bring my teacher to me. You don't find them. You create your teachers. You bring them to you, actually. That's really how it happens. So all of that is maybe it'll help if I tell you a little story about how I found my teachers. I've been Buddhist all my life. I'm Japanese, and by default, if you're Japanese, right, Joyce? 90% of us are Buddhists, just by default. That doesn't mean that there aren't Japanese Christians or Japanese Muslims or Japanese Jewish people. It doesn't mean that. It just means that if you're born, and I was born in Japan, so if you're born there and I'm raised by Japanese Canadian parents, then by default, you're pretty much raised Buddhist. And I was put in Sunday school. And in Canada, the Buddhist churches are churches, they're not temples. The Chinese and Theravadan, they call them temples. But, well, and actually the Richmond one, the people are calling it a temple now. But when I was growing up, they were all Buddhist churches. And there's priests as opposed to monks. Same thing. Like they all come from the mothership in Japan, and you know they're all given beautiful training. But I was raised Japanese Buddhist, and I understood intrinsically that my family's faith was very lovely. It was very considerate, very kind, very generous. It was very family oriented, but really the only time church ever made sense to me was at funerals or weddings. Mostly funerals, because the weddings were kind of really Canadian. But anyways, I never was taught how to meditate. I was never taught about the three principal paths, or we didn't even talk about karma and emptiness, because it was assumed you actually understood what it was. But this is the thing, when you're brought up, especially in Asian countries where it's like part of the lifestyle and it's imbued into the culture, on one hand it's beautiful, but on the other hand, a lot of people just do things because their mother told them to, not because they understood. They don't even know to ask the question why, right? So actually it was only back in 2004, a friend who is not with us in this lineage, interestingly enough, but this angel appeared and told me to read the Diamond Cutter book, because I was starting my own business. And I don't know if you guys have read the Diamond Cutter book by Geshe Michael, but it's the book that he wrote chronicling his experiences of being told by his Lama, his teacher, to go out into the world, not tell anyone he was a monk, but to practice the principles and go to work. So he had to grow his hair, like he couldn't have a shaved head. He had to take his robes off and wear a suit. And he went to work in the diamond industry. He started as a courier, and he started in a company they started with a $50,000 loan. By the time he left, 20 years later, he was VP, and it was a multi-billion-dollar business. And he did this using the Diamond Cutter Sutra principles of emptiness, of karma and emptiness. So I'm given this book. All of a sudden, I feel like the lights have gone on in this room of Dharma that I've been in my entire life. And so then I became curious. And I thought, I should find out more about my own background. I mean, I am Buddhist. Why don't I know these things, right? So I did a lot of research, a lot of reading, got a heightened appreciation of my home lineage, but it still wasn't speaking to me. And everything that I was researching brought me back to Geshe Michael. Everything. And then he came through Vancouver on a book tour. So I went. And I thought he was going to go talk about the Diamond Cutter book. But no, he was promoting the Tibetan Heart Yoga book at the time. So I went and got that. And again, like the words were literally jumping off the page at me. So anyways, the rest is history. I got on somebody's email list. I think that's how it happens here too, right? You get on our emailing lists and then we keep telling you what's going on. And before you know it, I was taking ACI courses. I had my Bodhisattva vows. Within 2 years, I was teaching Tibetan Heart Yoga, and I was teaching ACI. Fast forward to today, I have all 3 sets of vows, and I'm serving my teachers. But now, my immediate teachers, okay, so that was Geshe Michael, who is my root Lama. But my tantric teachers, Holy Yvonne and Roger Jakes, are in 3-year retreat right now. They're the ones that we have to thank. Many of you don't even know who they are because they've been in 3-year retreat, but we have them literally to thank for this space. Because without them, there wouldn't be a 3 Jewels. We started in Lama Yvonne's office in Kitsilano in a back alley walk-up, and that's where 3 Jewels Vancouver started. And I was at a very similar, I was sitting on that side of the table and just starting to maybe do my ACIs. Maybe I came to class. Maybe I did my homeworks. Maybe I didn't. I was busy running a gallery at the time. But I had the holy luck of Lama Marut saying to me, Sherri, you know, the tantric path is the quickest way out of suffering, but to do it, you need to finish your 18 ACI courses. But more importantly, just learn how to serve. Serve 3 jewels. They always need a lot of help. Serve Yvonne and Roger. Like, if you don't know who your teachers are, just serve them. You'll figure it out. And so I go back to Yvonne and Roger and say, this is what he said. I don't even really know what I'm asking. And they said, okay, great. We need a ride to Seattle. We're going back to Diamond Mountain. So I drove them. I didn't even have a working vehicle. They actually provided the car. I drove them to Seattle so they could catch their flight to Arizona, drove all the way back. With the hazard, I don't know, something went off on the car. I thought it was going to explode. I was reciting Jason Kappa mantras all the way home and got home safely, only to find my car towed. And yeah, but I didn't actually I kind of stumbled into that karma. I didn't know I was creating the causes. So thank God for my teachers, but I had the karma to have holy teachers instruct me on what to do, and I had the wherewithal to do it. Just like Marpa had the wherewithal to drink that bucket of beer, right? And I got to tell you, everything accelerated after that. And it was interesting because I recently found some emails I had written to Lama Yvonne and Lama Roger. And I used to call them Yvonne and Roger. And I used to they were, and not that it was any less, and from their side, it doesn't matter. From my side, it doesn't matter. But I could see the progression as my studies became more ingrained in me, as I started to see the fruits of my practice, the reverence with which I was able to see them shifted. And then after my tantric initiations, it's a whole other ballgame. And it's just been the most incredible journey and the most incredible, what they're telling you the Lamrim provides is true. And I have a handful of siblings who were on the trajectory at around the same time. And each of them will have a slightly different story. But there is this common theme of when we finally woke up enough to know that this path actually works, everything takes off. Everything is just... Do I still have doubt at times? Absolutely. Do I still have bad days? Absolutely. Do I still have obstacles? Yeah. I mean, we even learned last time, right? Even after you're an Arya, you're already seeing your DPE, you're still going to have 70-somewhat thousand kleshas to do away with. So the whole world may still be exploding around you. You may still have people hating you, loving you, writing scandals about you. You still may, but you will remain unfazed inside, and you will be of the best service possible to the world, even way before enlightenment, right? And I promise you that is possible. Even in my limited capacity, I know that that's possible. Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's just my story. There's many, many, many stories, but and I'm not even telling you. There's more mystical, fabulous, fantastic stories people can tell you, but you got to experience it for yourself. And in all of that, remember, it's not coming at you. It's not, but believe me, it's going to feel like it is. Okay? And that's okay. Don't beat yourself up for it feeling like it is coming from them, coming at you. But even in your most highest highs and lowest lows, know that it is just a perfect reflection of what you need to ripen in that moment. Don't ever lose the view, okay?
Would have been nice, and every time you think it's coming at you, to be able to prostrate to the whole being, saying, "Oh, thank you."
I know.
And
Although there's
still
also...
people take away this, the sneakiness of the doubt at that moment. It's just
I know.
right on it, just counteracting.
There was a time when, there my holy Lama was actually not a nice thing to call someone because it really meant that, oh, they're really pissing me off, you know. But, oh, my holy Lama. But it's all of it, you know. But it's a real test, and you just got to keep coming back to ACI 1. You got to keep coming back to ACI 5. It all comes back to the 10 non-virtues and all of that, right? It's coming at you. So the last thing I want to cover, which actually many of you were at my confession workshop this weekend, so this is you already know this, so I'm going to run through it quickly, but again, I'm going to give you the Tibetan for the 4 forces of purification. Remember I gave you the 4 R's? Do you guys remember the 4 R's?
Regret. Oh.
What's the first one? Refuge.
Regret. Recuperate.
Recuperate. I like that. Restraint. And reparation. Recuperate's good. Yeah. So here's the official, and some of you got the sutra where it's from, right? So here's the official translation in the, not in the order in the sutra, because they give it in a slightly different order, but in the order that we like to practice it. So the first, say Tengito. This is the basis, the base force, the basis force. This is your foundation. This is your refuge, okay? So they call it the basis force. It's the thing that you push against to stand yourself back up again. This is what I call refuge in the 4 R's. The second one, say Nambar, Sun, Jinbei, Tob. This is the destruction force. This is where you regret what you did. They call it destruction because this is the emotion, the intention, the attitude that will destroy the negative effect of what you did, okay? Thought, said, or did. The third one, say Nyepa, Le, Dam, Topke, Tob. This is the force of restraint. No, what did I say? Sorry, the last one, the destruction force, was the regret. This is the force of restraint. I think I might have said restraint on the last one, did I? Okay. Basis force, destruction force, the restraint force. So it's the refuge, the regret, and the restraint. Okay? And then the last one, say Nyembo, Kuntu, Chupe, Tob. This is the antidote force, and I like to call it reparation just to make it a nice tidy bow of 4 R's. But it's where you do something to counteract, to make up for the thing that you did wrong, right? And remember, don't say, I'll never, ever, ever, ever. Isn't that a Taylor Swift song? Anyways, it's like, because you might. And then you don't want to add lying to it. So set yourself some realistic goals for the things that you really don't want to do again. Because each time you don't do it for the time that you said, you've really planted serious good seeds, and you can rejoice in that. Because remember, from the Sojong, the rejoicing, 4 forces doesn't include rejoicing, but the Sojong, the confession ceremony, does, and the rejoicing is as important as the regret. This is not about guilt, okay? It's about honest, intelligent regret. Yes, Yulia?
I just wanted to ask, have you ever had that you actually put something, I'm not going to do it for the next 2.5 hours, and then things went too quickly.
And you did it anyways?
You didn't do anything, but you didn't watch for that particular thing, you know what I mean? Like, I'll
Right.
have a truthful speech, and then you didn't actually lie within the 2.5 hours,
Right.
but you did not, your watcher was not there.
Right. Good question. As long as you didn't break it, like you've done good, but it would have been way more powerful if you were aware of it. But I got to tell you, it's super hard to live in awareness moment by moment. My teachers tell me that even in 3-year retreat, it's hard, okay? So it takes, they realize what a heightened state of stillness and withdrawal you need to be in to be able to, they're so good at watching the turnings of the mind as it happens, but it has to either your external circumstances have to be such that you can slow everything down, or your mind has to be at such a level that you can slow it down, which enlightened beings can do, right? But until then, it's a practice. So even being aware that you weren't aware is being aware. So you're leaps and bounds ahead of someone who doesn't even remember they forgot. Okay? But yes, the more aware you can be. So maybe set a shorter time frame. Set 10 minutes. Yeah, I know. Set 2 minutes. No, seriously. Now, the other side is you might break it before. Geshe-la confesses sometimes, doing the 7-limb prayer and you confess and all that stuff, that he's already broken something before he's come out of the preliminaries. I think he just says that for our benefit, but I've seen it happen in my own mind. Then what you do is you do a Lord Atisha. You confess right away, again, right on the spot. You do a mental prostration and you clear that karma right then and there, because you're in that process anyways, right? So both things are good. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so sorry I didn't take a break. I just powered right through. I have a tendency to do that. You know what? Next course, John and I are going to be teaching together, and he's really good at making me stop and take dance breaks, so we'll get them in ACI 10, okay? I apologize in advance. I tend to just motor through. Yes, Michael?
Because I left early with the
Oh.
I just wanted to know what you guys did.
Yeah, actually, it's now what I didn't have yesterday, and I do apologize, is I didn't have the yellow mustard seeds or the white sesame seeds, which makes it more viscerally powerful. Like, we threw in the black seeds, right, to purify our black karma. We didn't throw in the white seeds to send out the blessings into the world, but we did send out the blessings into the world. Did we do the general confession before you left? Yeah, okay. So, it was just really going through. Everyone had an opportunity to really rejoice in the things that they were conscious of, and threw that into the fire also. But instead of seeing it burn up and dissipate, you see that smoke is going out and sending your virtue out into the world. So basically what you're doing is giving all your good karma away. Sounds counterintuitive, but it's the best possible thing you can do to supercharge the virtue coming back to you. Because basically that's the rule, right? Like, whatever you want, give it away, or at the very least share it. So it's one of the most powerful acts you can do. And then we just waited until the fire went out, which wasn't too hard because I had such a little can. It would be really good. We talked about doing this outside where we can have a real fire going.
By sharing, doing the actual virtue, right? Or talking about it.
No, the actual merit of what you're doing, when you intentionally give it away like that. Oh, but sharing. Say you want a cookie.
Oh, the actual.
Yeah. Either make sure somebody else gets what they want, or share what you have, if it's within your capacity, and you're not breaking any vows by doing it. So, everything has a mixel, an exception. The most powerful mixel is what your Lama tells you. For example, in our lineage we have, actually not in our lineage, in the Buddhist monastic vows, not the monastic vows, sorry, I don't know what they are, but in the layperson's vows, in the Bodhisattva vows, there's one vow that says you're not to sing and dance frivolously, wear garlands and stuff, but in our immediate lineage, singing and dancing is highly encouraged. Not frivolously and not mindlessly, but it's actually taught, dancing is taught as a really powerful antidote to anger. And music is really encouraged here. We don't do our kirtan nights as often as we would like, but when we do them, we sing in the key of bliss. So, but if you were going by the literal word of that vow, we shouldn't be doing that, right? But we're under Lama directive, Lama Mixel exception to that rule, and we're encouraged to sing and dance for the right reasons. And it's all about attitude anyways, so yeah. And thanks for coming. That was, and I'm sorry it ran so overtime, but we have a tendency to do that too. Okay, the last last thing is that oh, you know what? There was just a really quick review on refuge, but we've kind of reviewed refuge every single class. So, but actually, for those who haven't been to the last class, refuge is just understanding. Because the whole reason to have a lama is you're taking refuge in the lama, right? So you have something that you want to, something that you're afraid of. Like you don't want to suffer anymore, or you don't want to feel bad anymore, or you don't want to keep having the same crap happening over and over again. And you see this being who can help you, right? Like someone who can show you the way. So you seek refuge in that. But you have to understand again the emptiness of that person. Like even Lord Buddha in his day could not prevent. You know that Lord Buddha's prince, his name was Shakyamuni Buddha, right? The Shakya clan were slaughtered in his day. He could not physically protect his kinsmen. But the teachings that he has given that have lasted for 2,500 years so far, they say it's going to last another 2,500 years actually before it completely does its cycle again. But Geshe Michael says we shouldn't rest on our laurels because of that. We need to make every effort that the next 2,500 years does happen in the proper way. But anyways, that real refuge was not in Lord Buddha, the right? It was in what he was able to teach and each individual's worldview of understanding where the world really came from. So it was just a quick review on understanding the real refuge. And in our lineage, we say the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha like we did at the beginning, but we're really talking about the jewels, the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, the Sangha jewel. Whoa. The Dharma jewel, the middle one, is actually seeing emptiness directly. And the Sangha jewel are those beings who have seen emptiness directly. And then the Buddha jewel is a fully enlightened being or full enlightenment. So we're taking refuge in those three things. And you have the seed for that within you already. You have the potential for that because you too, like everything and everyone else, has emptiness. It's already in you. We just don't believe it sometimes. We believe that we are our physicality. We are our health. We are our emotions. You're not those things. Those are just things that are ripening for you in this particular vehicle that you happen to be in. All good? Okan is so patient. Sitting through all of this stuff. Yeah, I understand. And I didn't even give you a dance break, so.
Maybe he's grateful. I'm going home to eat now.
Okay, let's dedicate. Let's give away all this amazing karma and let's try it in English again. So crisscross. Baby fingers with your thumbs, middle fingers with your index fingers, stand the ring fingers up back against each other. It's okay, that happens to us in retreat too, where we just sort of forget how to do it.
I'm just seeing how fast I can do it.
Okay. Here is the great earth,
Filled with the smell of incense, covered with a blanket of the great mountain, the four continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them a paradise of a Buddha, and I offer them all to you.
By
This deed, may every living being experience the pure world.
By the goodness of what I have just done,
Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. By the goodness of what I have just done, may all beings achieve reflection of merit and wisdom, and thus two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. Thank you, everybody.
sorry.
I know it's good to do it in English every once in a while to remember what we're saying.